Good evening and welcome to Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. This is Monday night all over again. It seems like we just left you moments ago, and here we are again with a brand new author. His name is Rashodd Dancy, the author of the book F.R.E.S.H, Volume 1 from the Rebirth Verse. Thank you for being here, Rashodd, this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation is brought to you by Eilish Diamonds, LLC, Milton McCulloch, author of Love and Emancipation and the host of Night Talk, L.D. Robinson from the Darrow Press and the Fresh Book Festival 2022. If you have any questions for Rashodd, please leave them in the chat box. We will probably have time at the end of the hour to go back to those questions. This conversation is being recorded. That is something I must tell everyone. Please mute your mics during the conversation. And thank you so much for doing that. Good evening, Rashodd.
Hello.
Please take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello, audience. My name is Rashodd Dancy. From the DMV area, local author, real estate agent, TV producer, photographer. I do a little bit of everything.
And so what part of the DMV are you from?
Originally from Southeast DC.
Southeast DC.
But I currently live in Maryland now.
Spent a lot of time in Southeast DC. I can't talk about it, but I spent a lot of time there. So you're a man of many talents. Tell us about the journey to becoming an author. I know it took you almost 10 years.
Oh, well, it took longer than 10 years.
Okay.
To be honest. I've been creating stories since I was a kid. But I wanted to release my first book about 10 years ago. And it never happened. I never knew how to release a book. I thought that one day the finances was going to just drop out of the sky into my bank account, and then I'll just have all the money I need to just, publish the book. But then it just got to a point where it was like, okay, I've been accumulating all these projects, probably about 20 to 30 different stories, from animated series to kids books to movie concepts, TV series. And I was like, okay, last year, COVID kind of shut us down.
Yeah.
It gave me time to kind of like, okay, let me get some of these projects out. Let me start knocking things out one by one. And that's what pretty much, it gave me the time. It sat us down, and it gave me the time to kind of focus on what it is that I wanted to do.
So this is volume 1 of 8.
No, this is the initial. This is the introduction to what I call the Rebirth Verse.
Okay.
And this is volume 1 of 3. This is going to be the 3 books of the intro to the world. So this series is a lot more than 3 books, a lot more than 10 books, because it covers everything.
Right.
But just the introduction to that is going to be 3 books.
So your book is, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. In the Rebirth Verse, I cover a lot of things, a lot of characters, a lot of different things. There is witches, warlocks, vampires, dragons, animated series, you name it, aliens, you name it, is going to be in this world. Dinosaurs, all of that, But this is just the beginning of that process.
And so your book is very visual, but complicated in development. Mm-hmm. How did you decide to write about fantasy and sci-fi and place it in a modern atmosphere?
Well, you're right. It is kind of a visual concept, and
it's
it
very
is
visual,
complicated, because I am a TV producer, and I think movies. When I create things, I'm thinking movie. So it was a challenge for me to turn something that could have been a movie script into a book. A lot of times you see it the opposite way. People write the book and then it becomes a script or a movie or whatever. Mm-hmm. But me, I think movie, I think TV production constantly. So for me, it was definitely a challenge trying to like turn that around. So I did have to have conversations with people who have released books, authors that have released multiple books, and get some advice from people that I know about the story, because the story was outlined maybe 6-7 years ago, and I just had to really push that outline into a big story.
Right. And so your main character, well, we'll get back to that. So there were times when I could not tell if the character was real or just a figment of the main character's imagination? Was
Uh-huh.
that done on purpose?
Intentionally, 100% intentionally. You know, because I
And they
don't want
never
to.
lost character.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I don't want to give the story away
No,
for
I
those
know,
who
I know,
haven't
I know.
seen it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe I can throw some gems here and there,
Go
you
ahead.
know, because these characters, their energy, they're in a book I relate to them as energy constructs.
Right.
You know, and that's pretty much what they are. They were created through these gods. They were like a combination of all these gods, over thousands of years, and they just developed to a point where they could recreate the earth, where they could inhabit a planet. So I kind of wanted to kind of throw that out there early, even though I figured it may throw some people off, like, is this real? Is it not real? Where are we
You
existing on
know,
this
is he gonna
planet?
wake up and he's dreaming? Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
really
yeah.
going on here? So, but I didn't want to give the main character away all at once. I kind of wanted to lure people in to his story, and then kind of start seeing the differences in that main character and the physical construct throughout that story. That was the concept there, but it was intentional. I don't know if I got it across
Not
like I
well.
wanted.
I certainly enjoyed it. So let me just, and this is not a question I sent you. So his parents.
Uh-huh.
It's not until later that you know it develops into what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So when you decided to make this character and his parents, how did you pick their persona? Because they were very like ordinary.
They were, you know, initially. How can I want to say how I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these characters in my mind, they were irrelevant. They I didn't want
Oh,
to have.
they're irrelevant. Okay.
They were irrelevant. So it was like, okay, but I need to show the main character's development. So I had to have a way of how did this character get here? What is his origin? Where did he come from? You know, so I felt the relevance of bringing those two in there, because when you think of where a person's come from, you're going to think of mom, dad, their family history, you know, and I kind of touched on their family history throughout the entire book at the end of the chapters. But I
Yes.
wanted to kind of grab into where he came from and how he came to be, which led to the intro to the book, the prelude.
Right.
I can't even think of the name of it. Like, prologue. I'm sorry, the prologue of it. So that's why I stuck that there, because yes, I stuck that prologue there before that specific reason, to kind of develop his history. But the character themselves, you know, it was like, but I felt that they would be a good asset just for a portion, not a big part of the story, but just for a little part.
Just by making them ordinary.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like that concept because they really didn't carry out throughout the whole book, but they were very important. You had to remember that portion of it in order to even carry through the whole book. So kudos to you. It worked very, very well. So while you were writing, do you write in scenes or chapters?
A little bit of both. For me, I'm an outliner. I'm really great at outlining everything, as far as what this character is going to do, who they're going to run into, how the storyline is going to go. I'm a visual thinker. You know, I'm thinking movie in these stories. So I'm always thinking that way. And then it would get down to trying to develop the scenes, because I'm a big picture thinker. So sometimes it is hard to kind of get down to the little. That's why a lot of points of the book, I may not have described it as deeply as people want to. You know, when they walk into a room, they want to know what it smells like. They want to know if there's a plant or a flower. Is it hot in this room? You know, they want to know all these nitty. And I'm not that type of writer. I'm not that type of person who's going to go that deep into it, because I'm thinking visual. You know, so yeah, I'm a little bit of both, but more so big picture movie kind of theme here.
I'm that kind of writer. So you walk into a room, you know what it smells like, what's in it, who's in it. Yeah, but that takes this book did not need that. It didn't take on that atmosphere of needing to know the cup in the corner is cracked, and you just didn't, So I think, I think you did it the best way. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think that would have taken away from everything that the characters did, as opposed to everything the characters see, right? Which was really immaterial.
And
right?
with a lot more pages too.
A lot more pages, yeah. And so they took this journey, right? And have you visited all the places that they went? Or did you do a lot of research?
Well, I used to drive tractor trailer, so I've been through just about every state in the country. I've been all over. But
what didn't you do? What haven't you done?
What haven't I done? I'm willing to take chances. I'm willing to learn something new. I'm willing to grow. I'm willing to build. But I haven't been to every location in the book, but I've been across the country. I've been to a lot of different states, so I've seen a lot. And it kind of helped. But the times and the locations that I picked in the book aren't current times. I thought I was hoping that the reader would catch up and be like, this don't seem like normal. Like, this isn't the right terminology for this, So I was hoping people will pick up on that too, so they'll know. And then there's a timeline throughout the entire book.
Right, exactly.
Which is a completely separate timeline. We won't get to my normal timeline till I guess book 3.
Yeah. Right. But you were very, very good at explaining where they were, right? And what they did while they were there. So that's why I wondered if you had visited all those places, because that was pretty detailed. You just can't make that up, right? You have to have some research done for that.
Some little. I researched other stories more, but this one was just, I was pulling off my own experiences for the most part.
So tell me why it did take you 10 years. I mean, that's a long time. Did you write anything before, or did you keep a journal, or?
I've always written. Like, when I was in high school, I was writing music, I was writing poems. I thought about writing a story, but I was like, I'm not a story writer. There's no way I could write a story. But as I got older, it's just frustration, fear of not having something out, having a product out, wanting to do more, wanting to build my brand, to build me as a creator, so it just got to the point where as I just got fed up, but along that journey, it was always in my mind to do. But the questions were, how can I do this? What is the process of getting a book published? Do I go with a publishing company? Do I sell?
Yeah, let's talk about that. How that process worked for you?
I researched it. I had to talk to a lot of people. I had a company that was in my book. I'm gonna say the last 7 years at least, because when I thought about releasing it, I had started reaching out to these companies.
I see you got 2 ISBN numbers. I didn't understand that.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
You have 2 ISBN numbers.
Yes, I had to have 2. One was for
overseas.
No.
Okay.
They were here. One was for. I was with, I want to say, Ingram Sparks, and you have to have a separate one for the books, the ebooks. The ebooks have to have one, and the paperback books have to have one. So I didn't know that initially. So when the first draft of the book, it didn't have that in there. It didn't have no ISBN numbers in there. So then I had to go back and put a 1, and then I was like, oh, they said I had that too, so I had to have 2 different. Technically, there's 3 ISBN numbers for this book, but there's only 2 that we're working with now. That was a great question.
Well, listen, well, I read the book, I'm a reader. So this is not for the faint at heart. And my book, and you told me that there might be 1 or 2 out there with no page numbers, but this had to be 300 pages.
I did not, when it was being written and I was doing all the editing, and when I had it in, what was it? What's the book writing program? Word. I had it in Word.
Yeah.
And it was like 214 pages because I had talked to so many people, and they said, okay, however many pages is in Word is how many pages is going to be when you format it into a book.
That's not true.
That's not the case. You know, I talked to a few people that said, "Oh, it's going to be the same amount of page numbers."
No.
No, it's not. So when I started, in my mind, I wanted to get the book around 250 pages, maybe 275 at most. And when it formatted, it went all the way. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I had no idea it was that many pages, no clue. But now that I know that, I know what I need to be doing along the process of writing the next book. How many pay
But it
attention.
was, it was a good read. It didn't, it wasn't something like War and Peace, and you were like, "Oh my God, I'll never finish it." So it wasn't like that. It read very well. But I'm saying, for our first time authors, it's a journey to write 300 pages for a book. It's not something that you just wake up and do. It's a process.
And I mean, it happened, the outlining process. So that's what happened to me. Like when I initially was this story started as one paragraph in my phone. I had wrote it in my cell phone under my little notepad, and it was a paragraph. So then when I started expanding and expanding and expanding, because I'm taught to make it as big as possible and then chop out everything you need to kind of get it down to the size that you want to do. And for me, it kept growing and growing and growing. The next thing you know was, okay, this is too big for one book. Okay, all right, it's gotten way too big for two books. It's going to have to be three books. And that's what happened in the series, but it was only supposed to be one paragraph.
And so what about your editing? What about your cover? Let's go through that, because a lot of young authors think that that's a very easy process too.
No,
And it's not, right? So tell us about that journey.
I hired an editor.
Like, no way.
I hired an editor because I'm not the greatest on sentence structure. Math was my thing growing up. I could calculate whatever you needed me to calculate in math. So sentence and English structure was a little challenge. So I said, all right, if I want to get it as closest to right as I can, I need to hire a editor, and the editor was someone that I was using to kind of like read through my story anyway, and the editor got frustrated. She was like, no, the character is supposed to be like this, and this is what's supposed to be happening with the character. And why aren't the characters doing this instead of that? And she got frustrated, but I didn't realize she kind of skipped a whole section in the book. So after I paid her to edit the book, I go back and I'm like, it's so many mistakes. And I had to technically re-edit the entire book. So that was a frustrating process. It took me about a month and a half to do that, to re-edit the whole book. And then you asked about the cover.
Yes.
I initially was going to hire an illustrator to do it for me. And he couldn't do it. He was so busy. So he said, okay, you're going to have to find someone else. I can't do it. So I found another guy. And he said, oh, yeah, my schedule's wide open. I could give you.
Are these people you found on the internet or people who you knew?
Word of mouth,
internet,
everywhere. I look for anything. Upwork, Facebook, Instagram, however I can find you. That's how I'm trying to find you. So that's how I found the second guy. But the first guy's the guy that I know. We worked on animated series and my comics and stuff. I post on my page as part of the Rebirth Verse also. I went to him first, but he couldn't do it. And the second guy, he told me he was going to have it done the next day. A week later, something came up. I had to do this for another client. A week and a half, 2 weeks later, I haven't even started working on it yet. I'm like, okay, look, can you do it or can you not do it? So I started drawing it on my own. I was like, okay, fine. But I drew it. I went to the Staples. I got me a pen. I got me a little stencil, a little everything. And I'm sitting here all day long. I'm like, okay, this whole Saturday is going to be devoted to me drawing this cover. Okay? I'm going to draw this cover. I know what I want the cover to look like. I'm going to draw. And I sat down and I drew the outline of it, the shapes, the circle, the stars. And he hit me up. He's like, how's everything going? I said, I need to figure out how to get this digitized. So
it looks a little Ouija board to me.
Ouija board?
Right? I mean,
it was just a medallion. It was kind of like a piece for a neck, like a pendant, so to speak. And I was going to get it made, actually. I was going to get the pendant made, and I couldn't get it made either. So he ended up taking it and scanning it into the machine for me. But when he did it, he didn't do it perfectly, so I still had to go back and redo all the steps and everything. And that's when I made it silver. Then I added the outline with the gold trim and everything. And then I sent that to another editor to kind of like edit it, put it together the correct way, because I wasn't big on how you format a book cover anyway. So I hired someone to kind of like put all my elements together for me. And she came up with the cover.
It's a good cover.
Thank you. A lot of hard working in that cover.
Yeah, it is. Listen, because when you're a first-time author, people don't know you by your name.
No.
They know you by your cover.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The first thing they look at when they walk into a bookstore or they're perusing Amazon, it's not about who you are, because they don't know who you are. Right.
It's the cover.
It's the cover that brings them out to you. Or they look for sci-fi and there's your cover, but they won't go and say, oh, Rashodd Dancy, that's who I want. They may now, right? Because your book has been out for about a year, almost a year.
No, it came out May 25th of this year.
Oh, well, no, they don't know you yet. So,
yet.
This time next year, they'll be looking for you by name as opposed to by cover. So the cover is very, very important. We have another first-time author on the line who understands what it's like to have the ability to have the cover that everybody can look at and say, oh my God, this is something I want to read. So you did a fabulous job, even though it was a journey, but it's very important.
Thank you.
Oh, there's a question about what have you done to promote your book? We'll come back to that, Mama Tony. I think this is your first interview, is it?
Yes, but I can answer the question if they like.
Oh, okay. So her question is, what are you doing to promote your book?
Okay, the first thing that I'm doing here, as I said, I am a local TV producer, and I produce TV shows locally in the DC area. So what I did was I created a couple book trailers of my book. And I just finished my music show. I have a music show that's going to be released next month called DMV's Mic Life. It's a music show for rappers, poets, singers, and comedians for content, a video show. And in the show, I have trailers of my book. So under the PSAs, there are PSAs of my book. And that's going to be airing. I'm going to upload it to a site called Peg Media. And on Peg Media, any public access station across the country can download my show to their station. So someone in Texas can say, oh, we need more content this month. Let me go to Peg Media and download this show specifically. So that's one of the ways that I'm using to market it. I don't know how it's going to go because we're not going to really start pushing it till next month. Next month is going to be the first month, whereas it's going to be uploaded to Peg Media.
What's wrong, Mama Tony? Turn on your mic. What's wrong?
I hear what you said.
Oh, no.
You can't wait till, if the book is dropped, it's already dropped. You can't wait till next month. You put yourself further and further in the hole as far as becoming an author. Take it from somebody who's a librarian, who's a reviewer. Yeah. That book been out since May, and you just now pushing it. Guess where it's going? To the bottom of my stack. Because my thought process is, this book been out since May. Here it is October, and he just getting to me. He ain't no hurry. So these people who book coming out earlier, those are the books that I'm going to read and review first. You can't. That first 90 days to 120 days from the day that book dropped was the most important days in getting you out there as an author. So you already wasted.
So you should get your book to Mama Tony.
You say May, and here we are now in August. You running out of time, sweetheart.
I don't look at it as a rush. I look at it as an experience. I'm learning.
Long term.
This is the first time that I'm doing it. So it's for me. I'm gonna have at least 40 books behind this one. It's a test book also. So it's for me. It's not all or nothing. It's learning the process of how I'm gonna do it in the future. I'm building a formula right now. So then when the next book comes out, okay, all right, I know I've built this machine. I know I need to put it here. I need to put it here. I need to put it there, and that's how it's gonna work. I don't think it's a loss. I get what you're saying. You're the professional. You've been doing this a long time, and I appreciate your advice here. But I don't look at it as a loss. I look at it as an experiment, a beginning, a first step.
So tell me, for the people who are first-time authors, or even people in their second book phase, things you learned that you will never do again while developing and publishing your books.
trusting people to do what they say they're going to do on a timely schedule. You know, that is frustrating. That is one of the things that are really, I don't know if I'm going to be able to prevent that from happening, you know, because as an author, it takes more than you sometimes to create a product. Or as a TV producer, it takes more than me to bring that to you. So there's a lot of moving pieces that the average person don't see that's behind closed doors. You know, it's just building a better team of people to get a product out, you know, and learning that process a little bit more, because this is the first one. You know, I didn't have a game plan on how I was going to market it, how I was going to get it out, who was going to do this. I'm doing this on the fly, you know, I'm learning as I go. So there's going to be mistakes made, you know, but you know, that was the most frustrating part, trying to build the right circle of people.
Yes, that's very important. And so for those people who don't understand the publishing business, tell me how you got from the cover to the end and the printing. Where did you get all that done?
Where did I get it done?
Right.
I did that through I uploaded it through Amazon, Kindle, Amazon. They pretty much did all that work as far
Do
as
you have to sign a contract with them?
No.
Oh.
No contract with them. They're self-publishing. All I had to do was pretty much upload the right formatting of the cover and the formatting of the book itself to the site, and they'll go through a process of saying, okay, no, this is too big. The page colors aren't right. This isn't right. They'll go through that and kind of fix it up for you before they actually publish it. But they didn't tell me about them page numbers in the beginning. You know, I found out that on the back end.
Right.
I saw the first book and I'm like, where are the page numbers? You know?
Oh, so you didn't have the page numbers on your manuscript?
No.
Okay.
I had it in Word. You know, when you're looking at it in Word, there are page numbers in Word. So when I formatted that into a file, I thought it was still going to be page numbers on that file. But when you upload it to the site, there are no
Wipes it off.
there are no page numbers on that. You know, so I had to learn that one too.
And so, okay, so it's uploaded, it's ready to go. Who publishes the book? Like you have to buy the book, or do they give you a certain amount of books, or how does that work?
No, you do have to buy it. They offer you a small discount on it for so many books that you order. That's why I didn't order a lot initially, because I didn't know what the book was going to look like. And I'm glad I didn't, because I had to change the cover around, make sure the cover fits in the right cut. But they offer you a discounted price on it. It's like an author site. And then I actually called them and talked to them about that, because people were getting the book before I got my author copies. And I was like, why don't I have my author copies before everyone else is having a book? They're showing it on their pages and like, I got the book, sending me text messages. I'm like, I don't even have my book.
I don't even have my own book. Yeah. Yeah.
I learned that also, you know, that there are two different locations. One location prints for the author. The other is a mass producer that prints for everyone that orders the book. So the mass production places, they're
getting it out. They're getting it out, right?
They're going. But the author people, they're like, let's wait. Let's see how long he can wait and stress out before he gets his books. You know? So I learned that also. So that means I need to my next release well in advance, so that I get my author copies well before I actually release the book. That way I can get a chance to look at them, see if the print is right, see if the color is right, the pages are right, and then say, okay, I want to publish this book on this date, you know, maybe a month out or a few weeks out. I can do a little bit of marketing in between when, you know, when I see it to when I know I'm going to release it.
Well, it might not be a big mistake, because James Baldwin had 100 copies of The Fire Next Time that were wrong, right? But if you have a copy of that right now, it's worth some.
Oh, wow.
It's worth some money. So, you know, maybe down the line, the first, 100 that you put out that weren't quite right might be worth some money someday. So, you know, some things work out. You just
so
never
when people
know.
ask me, I probably got like 5 of them still left, because I did a lot of Lyft, and I would sell them to the passengers in Lyft, you know. But I tell them, hey, it's best to order it on Amazon. When people call me now, they say, hey, I need a book. I was like, Amazon is your best bet, because I have some copies that I don't want to give out right now, you know.
So when I flew more than we've had in the last 2 years, I would always leave a copy on the plane.
Oh.
Always.
Good move.
always. Yeah.
Good move there.
So usually one of the flight attendants, or they get it to the pilot or something, and then I get this email from out of nowhere. You left your book on the plane. We enjoyed it. Da, 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 da. So yeah. So when you fly, just leave one. You just never know where it's going to land.
Great.
You hope
Marketing.
it doesn't land in the trash, but I think most of the time when I left one, it
Mhm.
landed in somebody's hands or in the hotel room. That's from Janice Kearney. Just leave one in the hotel room or in the drawer where the Bible is. Because sometimes they don't you clean the drawer where the Bible is, right? So your book kind of stays there and people read it every time. So it's really a good idea. So it's just
Wow.
little things like that. You have to give up money, but in the end, it'll come back around to you if 3 or 4 or 5 people even read it and review it. And it's
Mhm.
worth leaving one on the plane, right? Or in the hotel room. So what
Yes.
else? You'll find little ways to do things. Take it to in Atlanta, you probably have too many hairdressers. But if you have a popular hairdresser, just leave one inside. Make it the hairdresser's copy. And because the women are there, they're sitting there waiting. They're not going to do anything but talk or read, right?
Mhm.
So you just leave the book and you make it out to the hairdresser, who owns the place. So hopefully they won't take it. But I did
That's good.
that and it worked really, really well. But they took all the books.
Ah,
So I ended up having to give the owner their own copy because people, they just take stuff. I don't care whether it's autographed to somebody, but just a few things. In Atlanta, no, you're not Atlanta, you're in DC.
yeah,
But in DC, there should be thousands of places you can just drop it and see what happens. You just never know.
that's a good idea.
Way to publish it. Did you find that writing your book is very similar to producing a TV show?
Um, there are differences. There are big differences between a book and a TV show. Um, and believe it or not, I found a book more challenging than producing a TV show.
Really?
Yes, a TV show I can do laying down halfway, or, my feet up on the counter. That is not hard at all. That is ABCs to me. I'm definitely learning that. But the book process, that's a stressful process. That was the hardest project that I've done in recent years. I've done music, um, things like that, but the
Mm.
book was a challenge. Because it's so many different parts. Yes, they're moving parts in a TV show, but it's easy, it's organized, it's simple. If you keep it simple, you can make something so much more quality than trying to be so complex with it when it comes to TV. But with a book, you never know you don't know what audience you're gonna reach, how you're gonna reach the reader, how you're gonna pull them in. It's a different challenge, I would say.
There's a bookstore in DC. Mama Tony, do you remember the name of it? Is it downtown's Black Bookstore? Hmm. There are 2 major Black bookstores in DC. So I would reach out to them and ask if you can do a book signing.
Mhm.
Doesn't cost them anything. You just show up with your books and on a regular day, they give it to you on a Friday night, which is always nice, or a Saturday morning is always nice. You bring your table, your books, and you just sign them and people come through the door and talk to you. And that gets them through the door. That gets people to come see you and gets people into their establishment. And it doesn't cost you anything most of the time. And it's a very well-known bookstore. I just can't think of the name of it, unfortunately. What I'll do is I'll research it and send you those 2 names.
Please, that's
Yeah.
definitely a good thing to have.
Mhm. It is a good thing to have. And they're great people. So you will do well there. So in our conversation, you mentioned that this is the first of many books you're going to write. What other kinds of books are you going to write? And when do you think the next volume or the next rendition of this edition of Rebirth Verse is going to hit
That is a great,
that?
great question.
Hit the universe.
That answer has a lot of moving parts here.
Okay, I'm ready for moving parts.
With the way I wanted it to happen this year, because a lot of times in production, things don't happen the way you plan it. Sometimes you just got to go with the flow. You just got to go with the way it is. So my kids' book, I have a kids' book series also. That was supposed to be first.
Is it sci-fi?
No. This is Animals and Alphabets.
Oh, Edibles and Alphabets.
Yeah, I created a character, and that book was supposed to be first, and the illustrator fell through. So I actually found a new illustrator, and that kids book series may be the next one that comes out, hopefully before the end of this year. I do have 2 other books, which is a photography book on all the memorials in the city, and another book called Full Production, where I go through the entire process of.
Is that out already? The one about all the memorials in the city?
No, I had the brochures. I printed a lot of brochures. There were going to be a brochure and a book about the same thing, but it hasn't come out yet. I was kind of like waiting on that. I wasn't really going to push that right away unless I needed to drop another book this year. Then I was like, okay, that'll be something I'll put out this year. So I'm kind of keeping that in my pocket a little bit because it's going to be geared more towards tourists, so to speak.
Well, would you be able to put it on the DC tour bus?
I would love to, but some of those places want you to just give them the book. They just want you to give it to them, but me, I'd rather sell a book at certain places. So that's the thing about that. Why I didn't get a lot of copies printed last year, because they just wanted me to give them.
No, I meant the statue. The statue bulletin that you did.
Yeah, it was 2 parts. One part was going to be the brochure, and the book was going to be the
brochure.
Yeah, it was going to be an extension of the brochure. So it was going to be like in a book form of all the memorials, where they're located, when they were commissioned, and all my photography. It would have been all of my personal photography in that book. That's how I kind of wanted to market. Now,
when you do a children's book, you have to be very astute about the words, how many on a page. Did you and still be able to give them direction on what you think the book should say, right? I mean, I grew up with See Spot Run, but we don't want to talk about that. But did you find having to be so succinct hard? Because if you have more than 25 words on the page, the kid is like gone.
The easiest book I've ever written.
Stop it.
I wrote that book in, I'm gonna say maybe 5 hours. I wrote the entire book. I woke up one day and I was like, I need to get a book on the shelf. Nothing is I got to get eighth. I was thinking a publishing company with eighth. I was like, I got to get a book out now. So I sat down one day and I actually posted on Facebook when I wrote it. The day that I wrote it, I said, hey, I'm about to write a book. And I started, and about 5.5 hours later, I wrote the entire book, the first book. That was the easiest, simplest book I could have ever written.
And what kind of adventure do you send these children on?
Animals and Alphabets. I created a main character, and my main character met up with a little boy, and they're having a alphabet animal game where the main character is challenging the boy to name an animal by the letter of the alphabet and do it with flair. So throughout the whole book, they're using A's or angry alligator, haven't eaten all day, or the dog is digging. You're using D's with the letter of the animal throughout the entire book. So it became a little challenge. He was challenging the boy to learn his alphabets and learn animal names at the same time throughout the entire book, and it was fun. Very easy, very simple. It wasn't stressful.
Is it a multicultural book, or is it directed towards African American children and brown children? Okay.
Anyone that wants to learn animals and alphabets.
And when do you think that'll be done?
It should have been out already, but as soon as the illustrator, I have a new illustrator, and he's actually been working. So hopefully I want to say before the end of the year. But I don't want to give a specific date now, and then everybody be like, oh, he didn't release it before the end of the year, like he said. But my plan was to have it out in January, So hopefully before the end
January
of
2021?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
That's when it was supposed to be released, So hopefully he's doing a good job. His pace is decent. So hopefully he can finish his aspect. And once he does that, then I can get into my part as far as getting it all together and formatting it to be released. I wanted to release this year though.
Did you draw the characters?
No, that's what he's doing.
Okay. But who gave him the imagery? You had to, right?
Yes and no. I work with 2 illustrators so far. My main guy that I always go to, me and him were trying to develop the character, what the main character was going to look like. And then I ended up giving it to another illustrator. He drew the final draft of the character, but he fell through the project. So I had to give that to the new illustrator, have him change a little bit with the main character, and then go from there. So it was definitely a process. So I probably have about 6 or 7 different drafts of the main character.
So the one bookstore is called Zenkofa, and this is in the chat room. If you want to take a minute and take a picture of it, because I don't think it will come over after the Zoom. So Zenkofa Video Books and Cafe and Busboys and Poets, they're both in DC. And so
Busboys and Poets.
So if you just call them and tell them you want to do a book signing, they'll probably just give you a date, especially during the holidays, just to bring people into the bookstore.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that I used to know. The young lady that I went to school with them. They did all the open mics for all the Busboys and Poets in the city. And the other sister, she was like one of the higher ups in the company. But I would have to check with them to see if they're still working there. But they used to kind of like run the whole development of Busboys.
I mean, even an open mic, if you just throw up a table, I mean, people are going to be there. So it's all about literacy. Anytime you can throw up a table and put your books down, that's what you do. Or if you're like our friend Kareem in Brooklyn, he hits the streets. He's a street. He hits the streets. He throws up his table on any corner and makes sure that he makes his daily bread. So whatever way you can make it work, right?
That's amazing.
But you can't do that because you got 4 other jobs. 5 other jobs.
I'm always moving around. I was busy all today. I was at the real estate brokerage today before I got here, and I didn't even realize. I was like, oh, I gotta hurry up. So that's why I had to, like, when I realized that I was doing the show, it was 7:40. I was like,
oh no.
So I had to hurry up and get everything together, like get the table, the lights and everything. I was like,
Okay, Carl, it's not because you didn't know, right? Because
I didn't know. Yeah. You gave me enough time. You told me. You posted a couple of times.
Right. So sent your copies. So it's just that you had so many other things to do. So I do understand that people's lives get busy. So if there's any other information you want to share with us this evening?
You did ask me a question, and I'm sorry I didn't even get to the end of that.
Oh, what was it?
You asked me when were the next books coming out?
Right, because I only right. So let's circle back. The F.R.E.S.H Book Festival is the 6th, 7th, 8th of January 2022. So we'd love to have you as an author there, but
wow, that's
you got to be done.
Down from my eye there. It was a real
Well, I mean, you have this book, but it would be really nice to have the children's book.
But there's another story that was a TV series. Right now it's called Widows. And it's in the Rebirth Verse also. It's on a different part of the timeline, but I need that story told before I get to the end of 8. And that story is female spiders that shapeshift into a man's fantasy before she eats him. It was a TV series. We actually made a script, so it actually has a script finished, done for a TV series for 1 season. And I wanted to get that story out because I think people may relate to it a lot. So that was supposed to be the next book to come out. And 8th volume 2 on my own timeline was supposed to be out at the end of next year. So it depends on the process. 8th may get pushed into the next following year. And then if it does get pushed into 2023, then both books will come out in 2023. One will come out in January, the other one will come out in December, if they both get pushed to that year. But I'm trying not to. I want to get them out on a certain time frame.
Well, let me just say, of all the authors that I know, the only person that hits their timelines is Keith Kareem Williams and Brian W. Smith, because that's all they do. They don't do anything else but write. And so if you don't hit your timeline, please don't think twice about it. My first book was 2008. My second book wasn't until 2010. Okay. So, because life gets in the way. But the thing is, once it's done, it's like a good meal. You want it to be done right. So
Right.
if it takes you 2 years to do it, then take 2 years to do it. So just don't think that you're, pressured to do it, because most authors don't have the privilege to be able to put out content like those two people, but that's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I guess if that's all we did, then we could do that too.
I definitely, I'm excited about getting that one finished too, because I feel like I'm not under any pressure of trying to tell a story anymore.
Right.
Like now I can.
Because the beginning is done. So now you have to just develop everything else, right?
Now I can just go with my flow. Now I can take you into my world. Now that I've already set the scene, now I can just dive in. I can do it my way. That's kind of, I feel like the pressure's off now.
Well done, my friend, for a first-time author. Very good read. I am a fast reader, but this one, it took me, I had to lay it down because I wanted to take it from room to room, and you can't get anything done if you do that. So kudos to you. And it's 300 pages. So if you can keep somebody's attention for 300 pages, you've done a very good job. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Right now, we'll ask you for a pearl of wisdom.
A pearl of wisdom? I've been thinking about that for like,
Everybody does. We end it that way on purpose.
And I just think about me in general when I think about that, and philosophies that I now understand that I didn't when I was younger, when I was creating these projects. It takes a village.
Yes.
It takes a village. Don't try to wear multiple hats. Build with the right people that want the same things that you want. Yeah, it may be a little harder, but projects will work so much smoother if you find those people that are like-minded, that want the same things that you want.
We call it the Fresh Book Tribe.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, because everybody has to be, willing to do almost anything to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you want. You want to find your own tribe. So I do hope you do find that, because if you do, it makes it so much easier.
So much easier. So much easier.
So much easier. Well, thank you so much for being on Zoom and on a Fresh Conversation. Thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight. And the Fresh Book Festival is January 6th, 7th, and 8th. We have just solidified it. The city of Daytona Beach is going to be a full sponsor, and we are so excited. Thank you all for being here. And Rashodd, we will be in touch. And good night.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Good night. You too.